Hi folks, this is lesson number 7, moving right along as we say. And in the last class, we looked at this sheet. And on this sheet, we started to learn about the transition from the present tense to the infinitive. And just as a quick review, we saw that shomer goes to lishmor. We saw that rotzeh would go to lir sot, number 10 on this page. And now what we're going to do is expand a teeny bit more, and we're going to look at things as they happen in the opposite direction, just for the fun of it and the practice, as it were. So I'm going to take my pen in hand and just write, as they say, and there's my infinitive, lish, more, in number 1. The to guard, that's the granddaddy verb. And I want to go to the present tense. So what do? I, as it were, drop the lamed, copy over my first root letter, shin, and then I invert those two internal letters, the vav and then the mem, and then I, so to speak, tack on that final letter, resh, shomer. And let me do another one for you. I'm going to write it over a little bit bigger so you can see it more clearly. I've got this verb, lil mode. It's an infinitive. And I want to carry it into its present, meaning to learn, to study. And I want to carry it into its present tense. So, the first lamed is the lamed of the infinitive. So I take over the first root letter, invert the two internal letters into vav and mem, and then tack on my final root letter, lomed, study or learn. Now there's something very special that, to the best of my knowledge, I created the concept, so there I can speak about it as if it's my very own. So if you ever hear this concept from anybody else, you know that it all began with Shlomo. And you'll see that concept over here in this favorite of verbs, lish bor. And the concept that I'm calling to your attention is the fact that this infinitive, in this infinitive, the bet is pronounced just like that, with the B sound, lish bor. Incidentally, the verb means to break, but purely incidentally, because we're focusing on the mechanical aspect of how to deal with this word and learning how to use it effectively. So we take that verb, lish bor, and we come over and we want to break it into the present tense. We're going to take away that lamed, bring over the first letter, invert the two internals, tag on the last, and the pronunciation here is shover. There it is, folks. This is what I call the digital dagesh. I'm referring to that middle letter, the middle root letter, the bet in the infinitive becoming a vet in the present tense. Now grammarians will take you on some kind of long, extended explanation, which is complex to a certain extent and has its exceptions. I'm going to keep it simple, folks. If you memorize the verb lishbor, which is meaning to break, which is a very, very popular word, simultaneous to that memorization, memorize the concept that in the infinitive it was a bet, and in the present tense it was a vet or a V sound. Lishbor, shover. And when I hear my students making the mistake, for example, of saying lishbor, shober, I immediately catch them and say, yeah, that's right, if you forgot the verb to break. Because the verb to break, I'm alerting their memory to the idea that the verb to break is our, or it's mine, you can pick another one, there'll be other examples along the way. It's my paradigm for the idea of the digital dagesh. I picked the word digital simply because years and years ago, it meant to me a concept like there's a signal, there's not a signal. I've never really checked it out, Wikipedia or in Google, to see if that's really what the meaning of it is. But for my purposes, digital means it's there and it's not there. And we're going to learn it, as it were, just as a rote rule. I think it's best for us. Lishbor goes to shover. But if that's the case for lishbor, that in any verb of this pattern or its child pattern, liknot, if we're talking about a bet, kaf, or pay in the same exact position, the same rules will follow. Hence, going the opposite direction, if I introduce you to a new word, which is a teeny bit tricky, you'll see why in a moment. Why, there it is, folks. I got a fey in the exact same position, as it were, as the vet. So how do I pronounce it? Shofet, with an F sound. But now I want to go to the infinitive. So I got to remember my concept of the digital dagesh. And what's my concept? My concept is I'm going to stick on the lamed first of all, because I'm making an infinitive. One dot underneath it. I'm carrying over my shin, which is my first root letter, putting two dots underneath it. I'm inverting my two internal letters, the so-called tricky step, and you have to just get used to by practice. Putting that letter in there, putting this letter after it, the vav after it, and then tagging on the last letter, the tet. How do I pronounce that, folks? Pause the video and say it out loud for yourself to make sure you've understood this lesson. If on the right-hand side, in the present tense, it was an F sound, on the left-hand side, by this concept of digital dagesh, we're going to put in the dagesh over there, and this verb is lish put. Lish put. Very important word, like all words that we ever learn are to judge. So lishpot, to judge, and shofet, in the present tense, judge, judges, judging, all present tense. The slightly tricky aspect of this particular verb that I chose is that in modern Israeli Hebrew, it's impossible to hear the difference between liknot and lishpot. So really and truly, if a person had been given the infinitive lishpot, he or she might have erred and thought, whoa, maybe that's the traditional OT type verb, like Shlomo mentioned in the prior class, and hence its present tense would be something else erroneously. I'm not even going to repeat it because I don't like repeating errors. There are enough of them out there in the world without my repeating them. However, this is one of the few verbs that you're really going to have to memorize, lishpot, because it's ending with a tet. In its present tense becomes shofet. Up and down this sheet, and if you're familiar with this program, you're going to see that things disappear for a second before they return. As I scroll down a teeny bit, you will see that you have a couple other examples where you could apply these principles. Fun ones to work with would be 7, 8, and 9. I'll try and cover them at the beginning of the next class. In the meantime, work on them yourself. All the best. Hope you enjoyed the lesson as much as I enjoyed learning with you. It was Lesson 7, Hebrew for All.